dark days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke through, we rise above. No more feeling set, we're fueled by love. Our small business is shining, reaching new heights. With the support of our success group, we're taking flight. Now we're strong, the vision so clear. Building our dreams with no more fear. Together we're resilient, unstoppable force. With our success group.
Let's talk some business.
Right. Hey, small business rock stars. Welcome to Small Business Saturdays, live and in person. As you can see, we're in the same box here today. So we're so glad to have you here because today we're going to dive into customer service. I know we're a little bit later than our normal start time, but we'll tell you about that in just 1 second here.
Yep. And I'm Kylene, and this is my husband, Aaron.
Hello. Hello.
And we're here to bring you practical, real-world strategies to help you take your business to the next level. So whether you're tuning in live or catching the replay, you're part of a community that's all about growth and connection and just making everyday business count.
Absolutely. Well, before we dive into today's topic, we do want to make this interactive. If you guys are tuned in right now, go ahead and comment below where you're tuning in from and what you're celebrating in your business today. What worked well last week? And I guess, Kylene, as the kids say, smash that like button, hit subscribe, share this with somebody who's a fellow small business owner. As I said, we started later than normal today because just came off of a very exciting event. It was very cool. I had an opportunity to be featured as a local author at our local public library. And so we got to spend the morning doing that, hanging out, talking to yeah, in fact, we saw somebody that is I don't know, I'd call him a friend, I guess.
Yeah.
You want to tell that story really quick?
So I think if you don't know, Aaron and I do the same thing every year for our wedding anniversary. And our first stop's always going to this place called the Wine Market. And every year there was a gentleman who would be serving us. I think he was a part owner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'd see him once a year. Well, we haven't seen him in the last few years on our trips there. And we were at Aaron's table, and all of a sudden he came up to me and he's like, "Are you the anniversary people?" And I'm like, "What?" And then it hit me. I'm like, "Yes, that's him." And so, yeah, small world.
Yeah, definitely. It was very cool to see Jeff. He's got a very cool project that not only is he a published author, so that's pretty cool, and congratulations to him, but got a whole clothing line that he's working on that's was very cool. So it was really cool to kind of get to catch up with him. He and I are probably going to grab some coffee next week and talk a little bit more. So
yeah, he's doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah. Well, our focus here is to really make sure you're not just working harder, but you're working smarter, staying true to what's most important to you, and getting real clarity and on the actions that make a difference for your business. So grab your notebook, stay engaged, and remember, we want to hear from you throughout. So drop your questions, insight, even your aha moments in the chat, and we'll have this conversation together.
Absolutely. All right. Well, so Kylene, we got to talk about this idea of, what customer service means, especially around this time of the year. We got to talk about that with Becky on Wednesday at the Rising Tide Talks. But we wanted to go into a little more depth, as we talked about on Wednesday, our Small Business Saturday. The idea behind it for me is let's go deep. Let's give people a whole bunch of content or ideas or different ways of thinking that they can utilize to grow their businesses. And, we definitely want this to be a conversation. So again, if you are tuned in live, please pop into the comments there and let us know where you're tuning in from and what you're celebrating in your business. As you see that scrolling across the bottom there. But we do want to make this interactive, but I think it also is an opportunity to kind of really present some information too. So where we always do the 3 pillars. You want to explain that real quick?
Sure. So we look at mindset and your fundamentals and then your wellness. Those are our 3 pillars. And we look at them because your mindset, you got to get in the right headspace, right? And then the fundamentals are your how to's and putting it into action. And then your wellness is how do you maintain that? How do you take care of all of yourself? So we have this holistic approach as we're sharing these tips with you all.
Yep. 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 All right. Well, let's dive into the mindset part. And I think when we talk about customer service, a big part of customer service that I don't know if it causes us like, ugh, or, like it's not always easy to understand what customer service is all about. We think customer service is about, okay, somebody's got a problem. We have to solve a problem, right? That's what we've equated it to. It's a bad thing. It's a negative thing. Ultimately, to be somebody that is very skilled at customer service, though, we have to embrace empathy, and that's not always easy for everyone. Now, I know this is a trait that you are more natural to, where for me, it's not a natural trait. In fact, it's very low on my list of strengths. And but here's the good news for people like me is this is a learned trait, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to learn it because it helps us better communicate with our customers. And so I'm never going to be strong at empathy. That's not who I'm going to be, but I can show empathy. I can embrace the concept of empathy. And I think that's always the best place to start when it comes to dealing with customer service, or, again, going back to that idea of customer service being customer's got a problem, I got to fix it. Right. And yes, that's a big part of it, but customer service is so much more than that. So I guess as somebody who is skilled at empathy, how would you recommend that we better embrace empathy?
Well, you want to be genuine in your responses to a customer who may have some heightened emotions. Everyone wants to be heard, especially someone who feels like something didn't go exactly how they wanted it, right? So meeting them where they're at, sometimes not matching their high emotions per se, but actually understanding and listening to them, immediately they feel heard, and that's going to take that heightened energy down a little bit. And just stay positive as you're talking through everything with them. Positivity can go so far, and I don't know. I know you have a lot to say about that part of it. Yeah.
So you kind of stopped mid-sentence there. So
I just know that you have a lot to say about the positive attitude, and how that can shift that customer's experience towards the problem solving.
Yeah, and I think this was something that I learned very early on, because as you just said, there's heightened emotions involved. Again, going back to especially thinking about customer's got a problem, I have to solve it, because two things are happening, right? Their emotions are heightened because they're upset. Something didn't go as expected for them, and they feel like they're being potentially taken advantage of, right? Because unfortunately, they've had bad experiences. We've all had bad customer service experiences. And so your customers are just drawing on other experiences that they've had. Now, this is a really cool opportunity for us because we can change that experience for them, but we have to understand the mindset that we need to be coming from, right? So you said about the heightened emotions. Then what happens is now my emotions are heightened, right? Because now I feel like I'm being attacked as the business owner. This person's upset and they're telling me how bad of a job we did, and they start yelling, and right, like even when this wasn't my company, we still take that stuff to heart, right? As a customer service person, you're putting yourself in the company's shoes, and so you've got somebody yelling at you potentially, right? And so if you can, now this is like my thought is kill them with kindness. Like, okay, I get that they're upset, but don't match that. In fact, the more pressure you get, the more friendly you need to get, right? And again, just keep trying to redirect them away from the emotions, right? Yes, you do need to give them an opportunity to vent. So sometimes it's just a matter of listening, going, I understand. I'm sorry. I understand your concerns there. And just let them get that part of it out. But then you, as the business owner or the person responsible for the customer service, your responsibility is to switch out of that high emotion and into finding a solution, right? And that positivity, because the second you start then trying to justify and argue back, it doesn't matter how right you are. By the way, we're not indicating
Yeah.
who's right or who's wrong in any of this. That customer service, it doesn't really matter, right? This is where that whole mentality of the customer's always right came from. And I know that's not true, that the customer's not always right. But the reality is, in their mind, they will be right until you solve this problem for them. And so that's what it really means. It's just kind of overused that the customer's always right. That's not true. But for us to stay positive, right, we can then get that conversation shifted. And then leaning back into your superpower here, Kylene, in gratitude. So tell us how then we can bring that to our mindset to even make this easier and better.
Truly just appreciating their patience and their understanding as you guys are working to solve their issue that they may have. It goes a long way where you appreciate your customer, when you appreciate anyone really important in your life, and your customers are important to you.
Yep.
And so just reminding them, hey, I get that this was a frustrating situation. I really, truly appreciate your patience, and we're going to make this right for you.
Yeah.
However, whatever that looks like, we'll get into that a little bit later, I think.
Yep.
But just, appreciating that they took the time to call you to express their concerns instead of just giving up on you and going to a different company next time.
Yeah. And here's the thing that makes this so important is, and I can't remember the exact statistics, and I'll find it if anybody really needs to see this, but some pretty high rate of people that have a bad experience with a company just leave and never tell them about it. Never tell them about their bad experience. Never give them any feedback there. And they just leave. And the people they do tell about it are your other potential customers. They're like, oh yeah, don't do business with them. Right. Like I tell everybody, don't go buy a Hyundai. Right. And they don't care about me per se, but I figure if I tell enough people, maybe it'll start to make them care a little bit more. Right. Like we're over that. We were a 3 Hyundai car family, and with my dad included in that. And so we're over that, right? And so Hewlett Packard's falling in that same boat for me right now. And right now, I've reached out and tried to see if we can find a solution, and they're not interested in finding solutions. They just right. But what I'm saying for us is that's where the gratitude comes in. Right. Like if any one of those people that I've talked to at either of those companies would have said, hey, we appreciate the feedback. Let's see if we can figure out a solution to make this right. But they basically just kept telling me, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And all I was hearing was, sorry, I don't care about you. Right. And so when you express gratitude, like you said, we appreciate your patience, appreciate you being willing to do this. So I was kind of, while you were talking, I reached over to grab the book. In fundamental number 12 here, it's called crave feedback. And there's a reason for that, because this is the only way we're going to be able to get better if we don't crave feedback. And so honestly, I would hope that you're not expressing gratitude and being false with that. But the reality is you need to express gratitude because you're getting this feedback that you need to make an improvement. And again, customer's not always right. And so you might take this feedback in and go, okay, great. This one situation, this particular person had unrealistic expectations. That's fine. But if you see a pattern there, right? If you keep getting similar customer service calls, like really good customer service companies, like when I ran a customer service department, my intention, and I honestly wanted the customer service people to have the same intention, is I want them to run themselves out of business. I want them to hear, listen, find solutions, and then bring ways to eliminate that from happening back to the company so we can make fixes and changes so we don't have those problems anymore. Right. And I always told them, I'm like, yeah, I want you to work yourself out of a job and then I will put you in a better job. Right. Like, you know, uh, being a customer service person is not always the best job in the world. Right.
No,
So, and
it's definitely full of its challenges
yeah,
when you do have to address these situations, and it's going to happen.
yeah,
Even if you're doing good, you're still going to have a few people that things just don't go 100% correct, and they want to share that with you. So
yeah.
it's part of growing. It's part of
Yeah.
adjusting.
Sure. And when you're the business owner, right? You're the customer service person.
Yep.
Right. I don't care if you actually have a customer service team and a customer service manager. As the business owner, you are in charge of customer service. That's how your business operates. That's how you get new business, is through your customer service, right? You can be good at marketing, selling, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're not good at customer service, your business will not stay around long. It is a huge part of what we do. And so I'm always so passionate about the customer service aspect of it, because I found that your customer service can actually be your greatest sales tool, right? And so, and word of mouth and all that other stuff. And so I think that kind of leads us then into the next core area here, is getting into the fundamentals. Like, how do we do this? How do we, okay, great. We understand the mindset. We want to embrace that empathy. We want to have a positive attitude. We want to make sure that we are expressing gratitude so we're getting more feedback. And then, so what's next, right? And Kylene, I think a big first step for us is just to make sure that we're very transparent. We're very clear in our communication, right? Like, when things change, when there's things that just are out of your control, the sooner you tell them and the more transparent you are, the better, right? So potential delays, issues, etc. Just honest explanations, not excuses, but honest explanations will go a huge, huge distance towards bringing those heightened emotions down, right? Like, okay, well, at least they're willing to tell me the truth. I still don't like the truth, but you're at least willing to tell me. You're at least willing to own up to your side of it, right? So that's one thing. Anything on the transparent communication before I move to the next one?
No,
Okay.
you're good.
All right. The other thing, and this is, I know we talked about this on Wednesday night, but this is very difficult for us to understand and really take to heart, I think, because of the fact that as small business owners, we wear a lot of hats. For a lot of folks that we get to work with, they're coming into, if they're not already in, their busiest time of the year. Right. And they've got to make stuff. They got to take care of the production. They got to get deliveries done. They got, everything that's got to happen. And so dealing with customer service issues is probably their lowest interest level, right? I already made that sale. Now I've got to come back and take care of it. But I think, and again, we talked about this pretty deeply on Wednesday night, but so you don't have to, we do want you to go back and watch, but just to kind of give you an overview of it, the idea is you actually create less customer service by responding quickly, because when you don't respond quickly, what's happening is they're now going, oh, are they really going to solve this for me? They don't care, right? I have a problem, a need right now, and they're not getting back to me right now. And so now they start imagining the worst case scenario. Are they going to ghost me? Am I just going to be out this money on this product that I don't really like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we have to understand that, because the more they fester, the more challenging the customer service issue is going to be to handle, right? Like you have, and I don't remember how much you talked about it on Wednesday, but like in your own work, in your day job, you had a kind of an epiphany about that.
Yeah. When you don't address it right away, people, like you said, they create their stories, and it creates more anxiety. So then you're not as productive with your time. So then when you are on the phone with them or meeting with that customer, you spend the first 5 minutes of that conversation listening, taking that negative energy down and getting back to that place of trust if you can get there. So it really isn't time. It's not very, what's the word I'm looking for? Efficient.
Efficient, yeah.
Yeah, it's not very efficient. I mean, you're creating more work, like Aaron said, in the long run by not addressing it immediately.
Yeah, for sure. So that's one of the technical nuts and bolts things that you need to do is figure out a way. And I'm not saying that you have to like solve every problem right away, but you need to say, got it. Hey, thank you. Appreciate you reaching out. When do we need to have a solution by? Can you give me till tomorrow to get back with you, etc. So the suggestion is not saying you got to handle everything right now. The suggestion is saying, make sure that your communication is quick and swift right back to them. Right. So it could just be a quick, hey, thank you so much. Is it okay if I get back to you tomorrow? And we'll but we're going to come up with a solution for you. Right. Yep. And if you have any other suggestions for a solution, I'd be happy to hear those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that kind of leads us into the next side of this, right? When it is time to now kind of resolve the issue, it's crucial that we make sure that we are focused on solutions. What we talked about in the positivity, right? Getting them to switch to a solution mindset, but you have to be there, right? You have to be willing to be open to solutions. Again, our nature, our protection mechanism is to make excuses. Well, I understand why you're upset, but here's why it happened. And the customer doesn't care why it happened. It's not that they're a bad person, they don't care, but if that was the situation, they might have not have purchased from you to begin with. Right. And so you didn't set clear expectations with them. So they don't want an excuse for that. They want to know what you're going to do to solve the problem. And so if you ever find yourself in that place where your emotions are so heightened that you're just making excuses or trying to combat them, right? Tell them why they're wrong. That's not going to get you anywhere either. And honestly, again, some of these companies that I mentioned, Hyundai, HP, a few of these other companies, I've had terrible customers. And the crazy part is these have in the past have been excellent customers. Southwest Airlines, another one. Like I used to be the biggest proponent of Southwest Airlines. I travel a lot to do speaking, and I have a lot of friends that travel a lot to do speaking, and a lot of them were like, "Oh, I only fly American. I only fly Delta. I get bumped up to first class," and I like legitimately seriously would go, "Oh, well, every seat on Southwest is first class." And I loved it. I mean, I was a huge fan, and I had a situation. And they have changed the way that they do business. And all they did was make excuses and then tell me why I was wrong and tell me why it was my fault. I kept offering solution after solution after solution. And they basically just told me to go kick rocks. And so guess what? Now I tell everybody I can that again, I didn't want them to say sorry or any of that stuff. I just was saying, I need a solution though. Here's the problem that you've created by your lack of communication, your lack of transparency. And I'm looking for a solution. And their solution was to tell me that I was wrong and that there was not going to be a solution coming. Right. So we have to get to that point if we want to deliver good customer service to where we can say, okay, what's the solution? And here's biggest tip that we're going to leave you with today is this right here. Do not talk yourself into something or talk them into something that might not be it, right? Like what I would suggest doing is if you feel like you can do this is just say, what would you like me to do to make this right for you? And then close your mouth and listen. Right? Because a lot of times we'll say that, but then we'll go, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. I have found if I am smart enough in that moment to just close my mouth and listen, that 9 times out of 10, what the customer wants me to do to solve that challenge for them is nowhere close to what I was actually willing to do. right? They're just like, can you just take care of that? Oh, be more than happy to. And I'm sitting there going, man, I would have given it all back to them or whatever, right? So I think when we start thinking about solutions, first just to say, hey, what would you like, right? And now there may be a situation where, like, for example, in my Hyundai situation, they never asked me that, but they kept just kind of saying, you know, we don't have a solution. Like they were tiptoeing around the fact that they wanted me to tell them what I wanted them to do. And I said, I don't know what I want you to do. I want you to, here's the situation. You can see it was clearly not good. What are you willing to do? Right? Like, yes, there's nothing you need to do that, like, if we were to take this to court, everything was good. I mean, that it was what it was, right? It was out of warranty. It was all these things. But at the same time, based on myself as a customer, right? Like, man, just offer me up something, right? And so you certainly have to weigh that. And so if you're not getting a solution from them, then you can start offering up some items and bring a solution to the table. But yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's almost like raising your children, right? And you want to give them choices. So when you hear what they're wanting, you're empowering that customer to share what they're wanting. And you hear that, maybe you give them a couple different options and then they get to decide. And then they feel in control and that they have been heard.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful. We know how it feels. I mean, we've all been through it. When someone genuinely cares about you.
Yeah.
And that's what you're making them feel like in those moments.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not here to like complain about all the bad customer service, by the way. I just find these stories I take it really deeply to heart because I understand this stuff. And I want you guys to understand as small business owners that you can compete with the big guys just simply by doing a better job at customer service. Right? Like, so I mentioned that HP was kind of on my poop list, so to speak. I bought a color laser printer and thinking, okay, cool. We were spending so much money on ink cartridges and all this stuff. And so we're like, you know what, we need something for promotional material. Let's just bite the bullet. We'll invest in this. Well, the toner cartridges are crazy expensive, but again, you get a whole bunch out of them. So comparative to an inkjet cartridge, they're actually very cheap. It's just that upfront investment into the toner cartridges can be a little bit hard to swallow, right? I guess would be the best way to put it. And I bought a new set of toner cartridges. I put them in and they read empty right away. And I didn't go buy third party or any of that stuff. These are brand new, genuine. I bought them from Office Max or Office Depot now. No, Office Max. And I spent hours and hours and hours on the phone, on chat, on their Facebook page, trying to get a solution. And they kept saying, oh, well, basically trying to blame me. Like, I'm like, they're in, right? I did all of their stuff, spent all of this time. And then the last thing that I got was, well, then you need to call this number. I'm like, I did call that freaking number. And I just like, wow, okay, whatever. And yeah, I was done. But I said, you know what? I bought these from Office Max. I've done business with them. I actually get a lot of my printing done there just because it's convenient and they're really nice people up there at our local one. In fact, our neighbor person, girl works for them too. And so, you know what? I reached out to Office Max and I said, here's the situation. I bought these from you guys. I spent a ton of time with HP trying to solve this. Is there anything you guys can do to help me out? And they were like, it's outside of our return policy. And I said, I totally understand. I'm just asking if there's anything you can do to help me out. And they said, you know what? We're going to escalate this and we'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And I said, okay, well, this has been very frustrating. So please make sure that you get back to me. 24 hours later, I got an email that they're going to come pick them up and give me a refund for all 4 cartridges. And they did. They showed up the next day. I was on a call and you took care of it.
Yep.
Huge, right? Like they didn't have to do that, but they said, okay, I'm a member, I'm a loyal customer, right? And made it right. So all that to kind of say, look for solutions and be willing to let go of your policies, right? I love having policies because it gives us ground to stand on as we start working on these problems and challenges, but don't bite your nose off just to hold true to your policy, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
So anything about that? And then if you want to hit that last bullet there.
Yeah. No, I think you did a great job. And then just how Office Depot or Max, now you got me confused.
I think it's Office. One of them bought the other, and I
Yeah.
can't remember which one actually got the
Anyway,
name.
they made it right. And
Yeah.
and you felt heard and
Absolutely.
valued as a result. So,
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
The other thing that you shared in that story, which is kind of this next bullet, is to educate and inform. So, they shared that at Office Max, that it was outside that return policy.
Yeah.
So they shared their policy. They were transparent with that, but then they said, we're going to escalate it. And
Yep.
so they offered a solution. And so educating them, your customers,
Yeah.
what the expectations are, ahead of time before these issues happen, will avoid a lot of this in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the holidays, for example, right? Like if you've been doing holiday gift product type shipping for any amount of time, you know that it's a whole different animal come November today, right?
Yep.
November 15th,
Yep.
November 16th. It's just a whole different animal. But you know that they don't. You're involved with it every day. You're close to it. So these are great opportunities. And this is great content for your marketing too, to just help them say, hey, just want you to be aware, these are the kind of things we're going to do our best to make sure that we get things out on time. So, we want to make sure that gift is there for you, but here's some things that, to be aware of. Sometimes it takes some extra days. The guaranteed service stuff is off the table. All those kinds of things. It's an opportunity to educate, but then it also becomes an opportunity to educate in that customer service realm too. I worked with a company called Pick the Gift, and I was empowered. I was, in charge of the customer service team, and I was empowered to be able to make the call that we needed to make it right. Right. We had policies, we had all that stuff in place, and that was great. But when push came to shove, we took care of the customer because they were operating as a middleman anyways. Right. So this customer is dealing with their customer and trying to, get the solution. But here's what we stood on. And this is what made it so important to us. In fact, I built relationships with those customers through this very process of going, we're going to take care of it. New one, we'll send it out, whatever, right? Like whatever the issue was, we're going to take care of it. Now, inside of taking care of that issue, though, I want to educate you. Here is why that thing came out that way, right? Because as a wholesale provider, our customer was responsible for sending in art in a certain way. And if they didn't, we still got the product out. Sometimes we would try to catch and educate beforehand, but in the holiday season, it's not always possible. You got to kind of print what you got. And sometimes that led to things that were, and again, we could have just gone, well, your art sucked. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. But that wasn't that wasn't what we were going to stand on. What we did was say, no problem. Let's take care of it. Can you make these adjustments to your artwork? And then you go, and so we can avoid this in the future. Here's what you need to change, right? Like that's not going to print right. You're over to the bleed line with the text that you're concerned about.
Yeah.
Right? And so, it's just those opportunities like that. Hey, I'm sorry we didn't get there on time. Today's the 24th of December, and I can't get it to you today because you're 3 days away, right?
Yep.
And so how do we educate you? And that was a pretty extreme example, but any other examples that you might?
No, and I think when you're sharing those tips and solutions, for future, to avoid future things like this happening.
Yeah.
It's just in your tone and how you deliver that message to remember as well, because to us, it's seems like we're in it, so it's kind of common sense.
Yeah.
But to someone else, it might. And so if you just say it like really fast, or you say it like you should know this, you should know better type tone, you're going to go back to the beginning of your conversation and have to do all that de-escalating again to get to this point. So just keep that in mind when you're delivering the solutions and tips.
All right. Just remember that when you're talking to me about the things I do wrong at home. Okay.
What?
What? All right. Yeah, that's right. I don't do anything wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get to the third pillar and wellness. And I know we say this every week, but I do think that this is important for people to get clarity on what we represent as a company, as our success group, and what we believe as people here is that we have to take a well-rounded approach to being a business owner, for example, in this, but just in general. Mm-hmm. And so wellness to us means certainly the things that wellness would mean to most people, our health, the way we eat, things like that, the way we feel. But wellness to us also embodies how we feel after doing a business transaction, how we feel about, for us, it's about falling deeper in love with what we get to do each day. So if you're a business owner out there that's just consumed by all the things that you have to and being overwhelmed and stressed and not having the time, you're not going to be well, right? Like mentally, and probably even getting to a point where physically you're going to be unwell, right? And so anyhow, we always include a section about wellness. And yes, sometimes that is, Kylene's a yoga instructor. And so our moving of our body is very important to us. How does that relate to business ownership? Well, you want more energy to get more things done.
Yep.
Right. So anyhow, but in this case here, when we're talking about wellness, we are really talking about more spiritual wellness, more how we feel about the transaction or how we feel about the interaction. That's better than transaction. Yeah. And so I think a first part of wellness, and I'll turn it over to you to kind of carry us from here, but and this sometimes is hard for people to understand. You are 100% responsible for everything going on, all of your results, right? And I know that's hard to hear sometimes because there are crummy things that have happened. There are crummy people that you've had to deal with as far as a customer or hopefully ex-customer. But at some point in that interaction, you were responsible, right? Your gut was telling you I shouldn't do this, and you did it anyways, right? Or something like that. So even if this is, the people we're talking to are business owners, I get it. But maybe you're in a situation where, like Kylene, you've got the day job as well. And so you gotta feel that ownership, right? And when you feel that ownership, yes, it might be more difficult at first to take on that 100% responsibility, but ultimately that's going to lead to more wellness because you're going to feel more fulfilled and you're going to be able to solve these things more quickly. And therefore you're going to then feel more proud of your ability to handle challenging situations. Customer service can be a very challenging situation. And ultimately you're going to build deeper relationships because you're telling your customers that you are committed to them, not just to their transaction, not just to their wallet. And that's going to build a little more depth and you're going to have a lot more wellness that comes along with that. So what are some other ways that we can kind of understand wellness as we talk about customer service?
Well, when we're not taking that responsibility or when we're shifting or moving towards blame or that negative energy, that's really going to lead to more burnout over time. Because who wants to have those conversations, right? If you take ownership and look at it as a positive way and solution, guess why you're laughing?
No, I'm just thinking of where you're heading with this, but keep going.
Oh, so I mean, when you do that, you're taking ownership, you're empowering yourself, and you're taking that positive approach. Therefore, delivering this information feels better if you are actually making a difference in that customer's life.
Yeah.
And guess what? That feels better than having to have these negative conversations all the time.
Yeah. And I think you're making a super good point there, Kylie, in that
sorry.
again, as we take ownership,
I got a leg cramp.
oh, you got a leg cramp. Okay. You want to sit down?
All right.
um, uh, uh, how did you create, promote, or allow that to happen, Kylene?
I just pointed my toes.
So going back to this ownership thing, though, and this might not be just customer service. Like if you find that things are not going so well, and it seems like the world's always against you, and this, that, or the other thing, I get it, right? I understand that. I get there myself sometimes, where you're just like, what is going on? But every time, without question, every time when I am finally willing to be honest with myself, I can point back to somewhere, somehow I have created, promoted, or allowed that situation to happen. So whatever it is that you think somebody is doing to you, or somebody, some situation has been unfair, I'm not saying it's not unfair, but the reality is you're the only one that can control what happens next after the unfair thing, or the challenge, or whatever. Like, people out there care for you, and they're willing to do what they can do to help you. But until you're willing to be honest with yourself, and so this ties back into customer service, is like, at a certain level, we need to be willing to say, okay, why is this always happening to me? Why am I always having these challenges, right? How have I designed my business in such a way that I struggle with the holiday season, for example, or right? I'm taking on jobs that I know I shouldn't. But we normally just stop at like, well, I should just not take on that job, or I should say no more. But that's not that. You would have done that already if it was as easy as just saying, well, I should do that, right? Yeah. If you're shooting on yourself, you're not getting anywhere. What you have to do is say, okay, how have I created, promoted, allowed that? And then go dig into that, right? The crazy part, this is the thing that like is wild to me, Kylene, is the crazy part is this one little thing that we could be talking about with customer service that could be a challenge for us, or saying no to business that we know we shouldn't take at a certain time of year, and et cetera, might have something to do with a limiting belief that you got when you were 8 years old, or 10 years old, or 15 years old, right? But if we just go, well, I should, guess what? You're going to keep not doing it, and you're going to keep shooting on yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you understand ownership and accountability, now you've got a whole new set of tools that you can unlock things within yourself that, unbelievable, right? Yeah. So, and then if can keep going here. Yeah. Okay. So then the other side of this, when we start thinking about wellness, is we just have to be proactive, right? The more we can be proactive, the easier our life's going to be. Yeah. Every time we have to react to something, now we're coming from behind the 8 ball, so to speak, right? We're having to kind of figure it out as we go. So like I said, you've been through this potentially. Maybe you've had a holiday season or 2 under your belt already. You're not going to catch everything, and things are certainly going to change, but the time that you spend creating contingency plans, making that extra call to an extra supplier to make sure that there's backup there just in case, right? We had a situation where we were doing ornaments, and we got big orders, and orders were bigger than we had expected. Yeah. And fortunately, we had done the work to have relationships and the ability to kind of figure it out. And so we had that contingency plan in place, that if things, right. And so having those kinds of things, but then, I had a situation one year where right during like a crucial time where we needed to get things shipped out, there was a major snowstorm, and we couldn't get production employees in the building. Right. And now, our contingency plan was not my favorite. I slept at the office because I knew that we were going to have to stay there because nobody else was going to make it in, and we were going to end up being production. But the reality was, we thought about the contingency plans, and it certainly made for a better situation, because the alternative would have been not meeting our goals and meeting our deadlines, and potentially running the business out of business at that point. So,
This reminds me of when we first started doing this together. At the end of the holiday season, you had us have a meeting to reflect back on what went well, what was challenging, because as time goes on, we forget about some of
Yeah.
those things. So even like when you're in the thick of the holiday season, dedicating like 5 minutes every day at the end of the day just to focus on what went well, what could be improved, so you don't forget about those things, so you can keep learning
Yeah.
and getting better.
Yeah. And just as a practical way to, I would say, in your busiest time of year, just keep a list, right? Maybe it's just a note on your phone or something like that, but just keep a list of all of the areas that you're like, oh man, I could fix that. Or, wow, that was difficult. I wish that I'd had a better, all of those shoulds, right? Make a list of all those things and then be willing to afterwards, like you said, let's break that down. Let's see what of these things that we can fix for next season. And then know, okay, at a certain point, everything that we're going to fix has to be in place, and nothing new is going to happen because we're going to go through another busy season. And then, right. So there's, even if you've fortunate enough to have built your company to where your busy seasons aren't all that drastic, you're still going to have some ebbs and flows. And so you just have to find that rhythm for you of being able to implement new changes. And at its core, that's what makes a business successful. How do you fix something? How do you implement a new change and go from there? So, hey, Barb.
Barb.
Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you checking out. Yeah, a little different time today, so not quite as much communication today because I'm sure people couldn't find us. I had a couple people message me and were like, "Hey, well, I couldn't find your show," and I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, we're a couple hours late. I was at the Kylene and Lewis and I were at the local author showcase." So, all right. Well, the kind of the final bullet point here, and then we'll wrap it up, Kylene, is, and we're talking about wellness, but I think understanding that. In fact, this even goes back to so I think this kind of ties everything together nicely because it goes back to what we talked about early on, to where we want to crave that feedback. We want to encourage that feedback. Even, in fact, and this is hard because when you know something didn't go well, our instinct is to go, whew, okay, I got away with that one. Right. And I think that's the time where we got to have an uncommon mindset and we got to say, okay, it didn't go as badly as I thought, but it certainly wasn't as good as I would have thought. I need to open up my line of communication with that customer and say, hey, tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. And maybe they're going to say, hey, I really didn't like it, but I just took it because I like you. Right. And then that gives you an opportunity to, okay, what do we need to change? How can we fix it? How can we make this right? Right. And I know that that's difficult because sometimes it's like going to put us in a difficult financial spot potentially or something like that. But that feedback loop is so important for a small business specifically. You don't have access or the ability to have all of this data and spend all this money on ads to be able to then figure out what's working and what's not working. Your feedback comes in the form of, Kylene, you're my customer. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you didn't like. Right. And so at that point, we also then need to show customers that we value their feedback. So how do you suggest we do that? And we'll kind of close on that.
Well, actually implement some of the ideas that were shared, that feedback that they provided you, implement it and somehow share that with the customer. Thanks to your suggestion, we are now doing this, or we heard you. Let your customers know we heard you and we are making these improvements to provide better service for you in the future. Somehow just letting them know we are making these changes for you.
And I would take that even one step further, because there are certain times where we get feedback and it's just not possible, right? Like, okay, I understand that for you, but my business is not designed that way and we're not going to be able to make that change. Right. But we still need to make sure that our customers know that that opinion is valued. And so, I mean, just a really sincere, heartfelt, hey, thank you so much for the feedback. We work this way and this is why. And so I understand that if this isn't right for you, totally get it. If I can help you find, somebody else that might, do that thing that you need for you, that's totally fine. What you're going to find is they're going to go, oh my gosh, wow, they cared enough about me to tell me that, yeah, this isn't going to work. And so therefore it's okay if you go somewhere else. And they were even willing to help me find somebody else. And so now their brain's going to be going, okay, how can I work more with Kylene? Because she actually cares about me and I want to do business with people that care about me. Maybe she can't do that project for me because it just doesn't work, but I can probably do this project. Oh, and my neighbor, they've got a project that would be perfect for Kylene, that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And so just keeping that feedback loop open and then showing that their opinions are valued, even if you can't implement every single one of them, it is important to acknowledge them. And every time I say that, I think about Roman reigns. It's terrible.
You did it first, not me. This
Okay.
time.
All right. Sorry.
But
That's an inside joke.
But no, when you
Kylie
were
and
saying that, it definitely brought up the gratitude, just truly appreciating your customers.
Yeah.
That's a way to show appreciation.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. So on our new studio software here, we got a new toy. And so we're going to put this out there. Let's see how we do. So if you guys want to type into the comments there with the hashtag, use, oh boy, I didn't even spell it right. So you're going to have to misspell energy. So we've got 3 different topics that we can talk about next week. Tips to gain energy. How do we find more business? Maybe the holiday season isn't going quite as well as you'd like, and you need to find some new customers or new potential customers, or some ideas for getting your time back. Some ways that we can maybe look at things a little bit differently to where, let's be honest, Kylene, none of us have a time management problem. We all have priority management problems. So how can we get our time back through changing our priorities, right?
So I'm sorry to go back. You want them to put hashtag.
Yes. Hashtag ENRGY. If you want to misspell energy, if you want to hear about tips to gain more energy, and that can be in a lot of ways, right? Tips to gain more energy physically, tips to gain more energy mentally. We're going to cover all sorts of aspects when we cover that topic. Or if you want to find more business, kind of some different marketing tips, use hashtag MKT. Or if you'd like to next week talk about getting your time back and how to do that, use hashtag time, TIME. So let's see what happens. And while you guys are doing that, let's go ahead and close up for the day.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, you guys, hey, thank you guys so much. I know, again, our time was a little bit different, so I would imagine most of you guys are going to be watching this on the replay. So we appreciate you taking time to check out the replay. Now, once you've done that, right, you're at this end section here. Here's what's important. What you learned today, what you took, whatever aha moment you got from this, make sure you start putting that into action. And a great way to get that into action is to start talking about it, right? Come over into the Facebook group at osg.link/group and talk about what you learned. And then we can maybe have conversations with everybody else in the group about, ways to potentially implement that, right? Here's the deal. And Jerry, I saw your comment here. Gonna have to watch the replay. Totally understand. Jerry, while you're thinking about watching the replay though, if you'd like to help us figure out what we're going to talk about next week, use the hashtag. And again, I misspelled energy, but ENRGY. If you want to talk about tips to gain energy, hashtag MKT. If you want to talk about marketing, or hashtag time, if you want to talk about getting your time back. So pop that in there.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
But yeah, so get over there. I just want to remind you guys, there is no better time to start than right now, right? And just taking action right away. I know it's Saturday. Do one little thing. That momentum you're going to build will be huge. And if you are ready for even more support and connection, again, head over to our Facebook group over there at osg.link/group. Barb, thank you for sharing those pictures in there from the call on, or from the video on Wednesday. Wow, that looks awesome. High five. Here, high five. So anyhow, it's we love the group over there. It's an amazing place to keep the momentum going. So let's get active in there, you guys.
Yep. And we're really grateful to have you guys with us every Saturday showing up for yourself and your business. And a huge thanks to everyone who was able to tune in, like, share, join our conversation. We really, truly are blessed to have an amazing community, and together we're building something really magical.
Absolutely. And you guys don't forget, a rising tide lifts all boats. You're wearing the shirt. I've got it
Oh,
on.
yeah.
I've got
I
it on
don't
my
know.
sleeve.
I can
can't
see it. I'm not tall enough.
That's right. We don't need to get too on. But a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yep.
We are here to lift each other up each and every single week that we can. Well, next week we're.
Well, we might have to do a recording.
Yeah. Well, we might not be live next week. Our son's got his first volleyball tournament of the season next week. So hang tight. He doesn't start until a little bit later. So maybe I can do something from the hotel potentially. So we'll see.
We'll see.
No
Yep.
promises, but we will have something for you next week, either live or a recorded session. Again, if you want to help us, which topic you'd like for us to, you can use the hashtag right now, message us, tell us what you'd like, put something in the Facebook group, whatever that is. So looking forward to talking with you guys next week, though.
Yes. Yes. And lasting change does come from positive energy. So remember, gratitude is your superpower. Embrace it, and let's keep building amazing things together. We'll see you guys next week.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Dark days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake.